David Russell, thanks very much for being with us on our program. We appreciate it. From your perspective, David, as Interim Commissioner of Higher Education, how can Missouri's public schools and institutions of higher education work more closely together to, create this idea of this seamless web of education?
Well, I think you're seeing increasingly collaboration between high schools and local community colleges and four-year institutions, in some cases on a regional basis, to try to address the issues that are common to each of those regions, because Missouri is very much a state composed of regions, and it has very particular interests and needs in each area. Emphasis on the P20 initiative is very important. I think increasingly you're seeing opportunities for business and industry, for high school leaders, community leaders, others who have an interest in the health and welfare of the community to get together and approach education from a holistic point of view. I think that is one of those things that we can place some emphasis on, even in times when the economic stresses that we're all experiencing prevent us from doing things that require a lot of money. So I would certainly encourage all of us to continue that train.
Do you see momentum for that P20 effort, gaining momentum?
Yes, I do. I think we're beginning to see some success in the northeast part of the state and down in the southeast portion of the state and in St. Louis. I still think we have a lot of work to do in some other areas of the state as we begin to understand how all of these things connect to create a brighter economic future for all of us. So it's incumbent on us to put as much emphasis as we can in that area. In fact, I think if I were living in a community somewhere in Missouri and was not necessarily connected as I am to education, I would want very much to be a part of that, to be one of those individuals who's helping to set the tone for the future direction of education. And an excellent way to do that is through the P20 initiative.
And the whole idea is to prepare kids as much as possible to be successful in college. That's what we want, isn't it?
Yes. Some folks have projected that within the next 10 years, 60% of the jobs in Missouri will require a degree. And yet we have some serious shortcomings in that area. I think it's incumbent on us to try to overcome the hurdles posed by things like remedial education that place a great deal of expense and delay in helping people to attain their degrees. This is one avenue to take care of that, to address that.
One of the statistics we've heard some talk about lately, David, has been the fact that we don't have as high a percentage of people in Missouri with college degrees as maybe we should have. Is that an issue as far as you're concerned?
Yes, the college completion rate in Missouri is a tragic thing. If you look in St. Louis, approximately 31% of the individuals living in St. Louis have a college degree. If you look at one or two of our rural communities or counties, you'll find that only 9% of the inhabitants of those counties have college degrees. We can't begin to put Missouri on a track toward being more competitive with the international marketplace and for providing jobs of high quality that will in turn produce the revenues that drive our elementary and secondary schools and our colleges in the future, unless we do something about that.
An issue that has received a lot of attention over the past few months, David, has been this idea of merging the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education with the Department of Higher Ed. What are your thoughts on that?
Governor Nixon said recently that he thought that was a discussion that needed to be had. And I think it was a very productive discussion. It caused us to take a look at the missions that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Department of Higher Education have in this state. I think we came to understand even more clearly that we have different constituencies that we serve in very unique ways. Governor Nixon has indicated that he is not so much interested in organizational structures in education as he is in the accomplishment of the challenge goals that he has set for higher education just recently. He wants us to increase the attainment of degrees in this state. He wants us to conduct an inventory of programs that we offer in our colleges and universities. These are important goals, and that's where he plans to place his emphasis. I think, however, that even if there is not a merger of the two departments, and that doesn't appear to be in the offing right now, I think there are ways that we can collaborate with each other in very meaningful ways. And the emphasis that we continue to place on curriculum alignment, trying to align the courses and the preparation that our high school students have with the requirements that await them in college. More frequent coordination we're going to have with the staff at DESE by virtue of our moving into the same building with them this coming fall. These are important steps toward creating a greater synergy between the two departments. You don't have to have a merger on paper in order to make those things happen. And a priority of my tenure as the Commissioner of Higher Education will be drawing the lines of communication between those two departments even closer.
You mentioned some ambitious goals that the governor's outlined for higher ed, and yet we're still in the doldrums, so to speak, as far as our state budget is concerned and funding issues. And I know the institutions around the state are coping with that. How are they coping with that? And do you see more of the shift of the cost of colleges and universities shifting to families as a result of the state budget situation?
Yeah, I'm very much aware of the struggles that our school districts have had in trying to deal with these budget reductions over the past few years, and so too have our colleges and universities had to address the same thing going back as far as 2002, I would say. They've been working on ways to reduce their administrative footprint, to control the costs for energy and personnel and things of that nature, and increasingly to engage in a conversation about ways of changing the way they deliver education to students, not only the students coming out of our high schools, but adults who are out there in the population who have completed part of their degree requirements but haven't gotten that piece of paper in their hands. And we know that that's an important thing. If you complete a certificate or an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, then you've proven that you can do a body of work, and that's going to make you more saleable to employers. It's going to enable you to make the changes in career direction that you may need to in a volatile economy like we have now. So we've got to address all of those things. They don't all require a great deal of money. However, colleges and universities are being squeezed at both ends. The amount of scholarship dollars available for our students is becoming less, and there's a prospect that that trend might continue for a little while. At the same time, they do have increasing costs for operations, and yet during the past 2 years, they've not increased tuition for our students. And that's been a good thing for Missouri families and Missouri students. But even our students demand quality in the courses that they're receiving. And so in order to sustain that, I would anticipate that we'll see some gradual rise in tuition, what I would consider to be modest rises in tuition, because I think the colleges and universities understand that Missouri families are not in a position to absorb major increases in tuition. So I'm encouraged by the fiscal moderation and restraint that I see out there. I think that will continue, but they're not going to engage in those things at the expense of quality.
Is one of the goals of the P20 effort then, David, to try to get kids who are in high school now to enter colleges and universities and then eventually graduate?
Yes, we've all heard that the P20 pipeline is leaking like a sieve. We're losing students along the way at very critical junctures. If you take a look at our current cohort of ninth graders and you take a sample of 100 of those, less than half of them will actually enroll in college. And of those 100, only about 14 will actually get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. That's totally unacceptable. We can't sustain the level of growth that we want in our economy and in our culture with those kinds of numbers. We've got to get those numbers up. So we've got to look not only at those ninth graders and maybe even earlier in early childhood education and what's happening to them, but we've got to look at the adults who have been through this pipeline before and dropped out at some key point and didn't complete all the requirements for those degrees. We've actually received a grant just within the last week from the federal government. We're one of 6 states that will engage in a program that attempts to identify where those adults are and to help them to re-enter that pipeline, complete their degrees, and go on to productive professional and personal careers.
All right, David Russell, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.